Hey y'all, Laura here with Cox Hempstead, and in today's video we're going to talk all things sanitization in your rabbitry. Well, I want to first start off by saying we are in the middle of a snowstorm here in East Tennessee. It's kind of a big deal. We don't get a ton of it, but yet we keep getting a ton of it, so I don't know. We're experiencing some snow. I'm out here to collect eggs so they don't freeze, top off waterers, check feed, give some hay, and put rabbit nest boxes in 6 of my rabbit cages because, you know, there was this perfect star alignment in December where 6 does received the bucks when I put them in magically all in the same day. Yeah. They're going to kindle in the snowstorm, but that's okay. I'm not worried about it. I am more worried about you making good choices for sanitization in your rabbitry than I'm worried about these rabbits kindling in January. So I want to start off by saying I do not have a ton of experience stressing and worrying about sanitization in my rabbitry. And here's why. I don't deal with sick rabbits. Nor do I want to deal with sick rabbits, nor do I plan to deal with sick rabbits. It's just not something that I tolerate around here. Now, that being said, there are still some steps and precautions that I take in my rabbitry that I'm going to share with you today, and I'm going to share with you some knowledge that I've gained from other rabbitries on how they handle sanitization. I also looked through a few books. I am a book person when it comes to knowledge. You might see me wipe my nose a few times. It's kind of cold. So there's a little drip. Here's a few books that I really like to answer questions on rabbit issues and so forth. This is Raising Rabbits for Meat by Eric Rapp and Colleen Rapp, and this is Rabbit Raising Problem Solver. I have lots of rabbit books. These seem to be my first go-to because I trust these sources really well. There's also Stories Guide, and I've talked about other books in my videos. I also have them linked on my Amazon tree down below where you can see those books. But I'm going to mention a few things that are said in those books today, as well as other sources that I found online and a few other books that I have as well. I also took notes. I have decided that in order to make sense of my chaos when I'm talking to you, I need a few notes on hand. So hang tight with me if you see me looking down, is to keep on track to give you the best information and knowledge that I have. So people will sanitize for many reasons, and there's many different views on it, on when you should, when you shouldn't, how often you should, so on and so forth. Same thing as Cloroxing your house. Some people say do it, some people say not. Some people wash their hands all the time, some people don't. Some people say that that's what caused the germs in the first place. There's all different views like that within your rabbitry too. And you're gonna have to establish what view you have in your rabbitry, and there may be tools in the tool belt that you pull out when you need them, and other times where you say, I'm gonna live on a prayer here and see what happens. And so that's a little bit of what we do here. I pull out tools when I need them, and I live on a lot of prayer. However, there are a few common views across rabbitries that I think you need to know going into this. Number 1, it is important to remove any sick rabbit from your rabbitry ASAP. You need them as far away from your other rabbits as you can possibly do, and you need to consider, number 1, culling them. If they are very expensive and special rabbits, then you need to consider treating them. In our rabbitry, we have a tendency to cull. I am not a vet. I don't play vet. I don't want to play vet, nor do I want to pay a vet. No. So we cull, or we mercy cull, humanely dispatch the rabbit and give it another purpose. That being said, I've not had to do that many times. I do that more for old age than I do for health problems. No matter what you choose to treat or to cull, that rabbit needs to be separated from all other rabbits. If there's absolutely no way you can separate, you can consider an in-house quarantine where you put up all 3 sides around all of your rabbits and keep at least a 4-foot space between your rabbit aisles for no airborne illnesses can be contagious and spread to one another. That being said, you also have to be careful about those 3-sided enclosures in an enclosure because then there's no airflow, and it can be a nice space for more germs and pathogens to do their thing and multiply. So Not ideal to go long term with a super quarantine 3-sided situation. So I don't recommend that. I recommend you getting that rabbit out of your rabbitry, mercy cull, sanitize your clothes, sanitize the cage, and we're going to talk about ways to do that. So no matter your beliefs on sanitization, here are a few times when I think most everyone agrees it is important to sanitize. Number one, when you get new to you cages that have been previously used at another rabbitry, you want to do your best to make sure you're not bringing any disease or starting with any disease in your rabbitry. Here's what I would do in that case. I would take those rabbit cages, which this is what I have done, and I would spray them with ammonia. Did you hear me? I said ammonia. Don't get me! It is the one chemical that I know of that will kill coccidiosis. And so that is my go-to outside in a well-ventilated area to kill those pathogens. Then I will take that cage and I will power wash it. And then I will also let it sit in the sun for several hours or days, as long as I can, until I absolutely have to use that rabbit cage. I don't love using chemicals just as much as the next person. Actually, the next person might. The next homesteader, let's say. We don't love chemicals generally, but there is a time and a place where stuff like that can be necessary. And so when I get a new cage, the one thing I am mostly concerned about is coccidiosis, along with other pathogens, but the one thing that will kill it all is ammonia. You could also use a 50-50 bleach mix, vinegar, white vinegar I mean, or hydrogen peroxide. Or you can take your time washing with one, sanitize, or washing with the power wash or water hose, and then doing another one and setting it out in the sun to make sure that rabbit cage or enclosure that you have brought onto your rabbitry is as clean as you can possibly get it before putting your rabbits in it. You can also torch that rabbit cage. Not ideal to use that method all of the time, but there is a time and a place for torching a rabbit cage. So number one, when to sanitize is when you get a new rabbit cage, a new to you rabbit cage, or rabbit supplies, new to you rabbit supplies, feeders, waterers, rest pads, so on and so forth. You want to make sure those are coming into your rabbitry good and clean and safe for your rabbit. Number two reason to sanitize in your rabbitry is when you have a suspected illness or a diagnosed illness. You want to make sure you are doing everything in your power to sanitize their cage and areas around them, and even your clothes, yourself, your regular stuff that you wear to your rabbitry. You want to make sure and sanitize all those so that you're not passing that around. And number three, some people sanitize, that's three. Some people sanitize routinely. You'll have to decide what level of sanitization you want to do on a routine basis. So, cages and their supplies when there's an illness, and then some people do it routinely. I'm going to share with you some of the best sanitizers to use in your rabbitry. Eric and Colleen Rapp agree that sunshine is number one. If you can get sunshine on anything that needs sanitized, you're going in the right direction. Number two, bleach water combo. This is most commonly used in rabbitries because it doesn't stay on the cages and doesn't seem to cause a reaction to your rabbits. However, that being said, most people use a bleach water combo. They rinse, bleach water combo, rinse. They're making sure to rinse after they use it. It is not pretty common to just rinse it with bleach and leave it. Anything you use, you want to rinse it off and have those cages as clean and as safe and fume-free as possible. Number one, let's see. Number one is sunshine. Number two is bleach water. Number three is that ammonia because it will kill the things that the bleach will not. Now, let's talk about some more routine cleaning things that people might use, and that is white vinegar. Some people like to use white vinegar in their rabbitries as they're doing their regular routine clean outs. That's fine. That's fine if that's up for you. I have not done that. I don't think my husband would like me very much if I did that. He hates the smell of vinegar. I love vinegar. You know, you're either a vinegar person or you're not. He's not, I am. I don't use it much. I don't even use it much in my house because he hates the smell so much. But some people use white vinegar regularly. Also, a thing that I saw regularly used was a hydrogen peroxide that is for cleaning. I saw the brand Prevail and the brand Rescue, some of those even being put into a foamer so that it kind of coats your cage and acts as a cleaner and sanitizer in your rabbitry. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's a fine method to use to clean, to keep your rabbits in tip-top cleanliness. And then last but not least, some people torch their cages. Torches are nice because they will get off those little hairs that linger everywhere, and they will do an instant sanitization, but they come with risk. They can compromise the integrity of your cages. You better hope nothing flammable's around because you might end up with a fire, and you have to have water on standby just in case something does get a little too flamey. I have used a torch just a time or two in a spot where I thought maybe a rabbit had fur mites. I wasn't really sure, so I went ahead and torched down the area just to play it safe. And so there are times where I will bring that out. It is not a part of my regular routine. Number one, I don't feel like it's very cost effective. And number two, I feel like it's going to damage my cages. And number three, I'm not that big of a risk taker when it comes to my rabbitry. I was a nervous wreck using it. But some people use it, and they've used it for years, and they say it doesn't hurt their cage, and all is fine. You've got to find that answer for yourself. Dig around online, see what you find. Probably the same thing as me, as two different opinions on using the torches in your rabbitry. If you're watching this and you use a torch, let me know. Has it compromised your cages, or do you love it and use it routinely? Things to be careful of when you're sanitizing in your rabbitry. Fumes. You want to make sure you are getting stuff out in open air as much as you can when it comes to sanitization. I have huge cages inside my barn. I can't easily take these out of here. If there comes a day where I have to use ammonia in my rabbitry, I'm going to do a lot of praying. And I'm going to find a place to put a lot of rabbits because I'm not going to leave anybody behind. So typically the only time that I use ammonia is before it comes in my rabbitry or on my rabbit tractors, which we'll talk about in a few minutes as well. Now, not only will the fumes damage your rabbits, but also the chemicals if it gets on their feet. You have to be careful to rinse off all chemicals that you use so that it doesn't cause burns and sores on the bottom of your rabbit's feet, which then can mess with the integrity of their rest pads and then can lead to sore hocks, so on and so forth. So while you want that cage bottom clean, you don't want it chemical clean because that can cause problems as well. Just like our gut has a balance of good bacteria and bad bacteria, so does the rest of the world. And in fact, some level of bacteria is okay in your rabbitry and kind of needed. If you sanitize everything to death all the time, that could also become detrimental to your rabbit's health. So be careful not to over sanitize. Now, some people might disagree with me on that, and that's okay. I would love to hear your philosophy if that's the case. But number one, I don't have the time to constantly sanitize. And number two, I just don't think a sterile environment like that is healthy to the animals and their gut microbe too. I highly, highly, highly recommend that you cull over pamper. And what I mean by that is I suggest that if you have a rabbit that is constantly having health problems, or you suspect is having health problems, or its offspring are having health problems, cull the rabbit. Don't waste your time and energy and money pampering and putting your other rabbits at risk over one bad apple. I know that's a hard thing for some people to grasp, but trust me, it's not worth it. Not worth it. I've had to do hard culls here. I don't like it. No life is easy to take, especially one that really just isn't, I don't know. It's needed. It's necessary. I don't even have the words to explain it, but I recommend culling over pampering. Maybe you can find somebody else that will help you pamper instead, but for me and my productive, profitable rabbitry, we cull over pamper. So what do I do in my rabbitry as far as sanitization goes? Why did I make a video with a word so hard to say over and over again? I don't know. And I evidently can't say gut microbe. My gut. There's that word that comes after that. I've been watching all these videos trying to get my health better, and I can't say it. So anyways, I don't know why I chose that. So what do I do in my rabbitry? We just do regular wipe down of cages, which I have a video about that right here you can go check out. We also will wash and clean rabbit water bottles several times a year, and I'll use soapy water to do that. And then sometimes I'll use a vinegar or something else to help clean them. I don't stress too much over it because I don't really have disease in my rabbitry. Given I had disease or I was seeing health problems come up, I would take different steps. But right now I just kind of do regular routine scrub soapy water on those water bottles and feeders as needed. I also will wash out our nest boxes between litters and set them out in the sun. So I use that scraper that I mentioned in my cleaning video that looks like this, and I scrape down those nest boxes really good, and I fill them with water and slosh it around, and then I set those nest boxes in the sun to sanitize out in the sunlight. And that's worked really well for me thus far. The only time I've had nest box eye issues is when it's really, really cold and those kids aren't wanting to get out and start exploring at an age that they should, and they're wanting to stay in the nest box a little longer. If that starts to happen, I flip that nest box on its side and force those rabbits to get out, keeping the litter out of that box as much as I can. Back to my cages and routinely cleaning of the cages. I will torch as needed. Like I said, it's not very often. I've only torched a time or two in here, but I do power wash a few times a year, getting as much of the grime and grud off that I can. And so far, this method has worked for me. I don't overly sanitize in here. I am very cautious about what rabbits I bring onto my rabbitry, and I watch them, monitor them daily for any health issues or any suspected health issues, and then I will cull if I suspect something is coming on. Now, I mentioned earlier that we do something a little different for our rabbit tractors. We have experienced coccidiosis in our rabbit tractors. Our rabbit tractors are a pull-along grow out pen that we use for our meat rabbits, and those are moved every day on pasture, but we live in the south here and it's kind of hot and humid, and coccidiosis loves to live in hot, humid climates. And so we have found when processing that some of our rabbits' livers have been infected with coccidiosis. So on those rabbit tractors, I will spray them down with ammonia water combo. I do about 10% ammonia, 90% water, spray those down really, really well, power wash them and sun them on the driveway for several days between rabbit litters to make sure that I'm getting all that out as much as I possibly can. Here's a few tips to help you minimize having to be concerned about disease in your rabbitry. And these are the steps that I follow and that I would think would be beneficial for you and your rabbitry. Number one, do not take a rabbit into your rabbitry without knowing the rabbit's history, its current living situations. I always tell people don't go for the free rabbit unless you're eating it that day, because you just never know the health issues it has coming in. Avoid any rabbit that you don't know the history of and its living conditions. Unless you're a rabbit rescue and that's a different story and that's what you do, then I guess don't listen to me. But if you are wanting to be a productive, profitable rabbitry, watch out for free rabbits. They'll get you every time. Don't ask me how I know. I just know. I have also here to cull your grow outs between 12 to 16 weeks. Don't keep those grow outs lingering. The older they get, the more susceptible they get to pathogens, and that means more exposure within your rabbitry. We cull ideally around 12 weeks, around the 5-pound mark. In the rabbit tractor, they don't always get to that 5-pound mark by then, but in our cages, they definitely make it. And so cull by 12 weeks to prevent even more rabbits with more pathogens in your rabbitry. Quarantine new rabbits. If you bring home a new rabbit, have a space away from the others that you can quarantine that up to a month to make sure that it is healthy and going to be a good fit for your rabbitry. You don't want to compromise your rabbitry for the sake of a new one that's coming in. Number 3, keep good airflow in your rabbitry. You want your rabbits to be able to have fresh air coming in and out. Our rabbits are in a barn, and there is about a 1/2 inch gap between all the slats in our barn, so it allows for fresh air. We also have windows, and we now have window fan to help circulate the air in the summertime, and then we have doors we can open up, especially in the summertime, to help get more airflow in here. Airflow is essential. Number 4, you want to prevent fly overgrowth. You want to keep any environment that's going to invite the flies away from your rabbitries. This is when you can get infestations of botfly and so on and so forth that can really be detrimental to your rabbits. So make sure you're not having lots of puddles of fluids, if you know what I mean, urine, water bottle leaking, that type of thing. I'm going to experiment this coming year with First Saturday lime in my rabbitry floors to see if it will help keep flies away. I really haven't had too bad of a problem, I think because we have the chickens nearby, but I'm going to go a step further and try some lime this year, that First Saturday lime, and see if I can take it up even another notch, keeping those flies at bay. Number 5, are you ready for this? Prepare to cull your breeders between 3 to 4 years of age. I get asked this question a lot. When do you cull your breeders? When do you cull your breeders? And I have found that they do pretty well for 3 to 4 years. Somewhere within that 3 to 4 year mark, bucks stop caring for themselves. They get a little nasty. Does' conditions start to go downhill, and they have smaller litters, which isn't profitable for your homestead. And so with age, they become more susceptible to diseases and infections. And so I tell people to prevent and minimize disease on your rabbitry, to go ahead and plan to cull between 3 and 4 years of age. Sooner if you see signs sooner, but if all is going well, go ahead and plan for that. They have served their purpose well for you. They have provided for your family, your community, and your homestead. It's time to let them go peacefully and have another purpose to feed your dogs, feed your compost, so on and so forth. Well, I hoped I answered as many questions as I could for you today about sanitization in your rabbitry. I hope you don't feel overwhelmed, because that's not my purpose. I was overwhelmed researching for this because I don't do a ton of it here, but I wanted to give you good information about what I've learned and what some of the best authors out there have to say in their rabbitries is what's worked. And so I hope I've put this little package together that tells you you can raise rabbits and you don't have to stress too much. Here's a few boundaries, and if you follow those boundaries, hopefully it will lead you to success. If you have any questions or concerns, maybe I gave some wrong information and you've been in this business way longer than I have and you have some knowledge to share, I better find you in the comments. I want to hear from you. I want to hear your experience. And as always, let's be kind to one another. Let's encourage one another on. And until next time, eat more rabbit! Just like our gut microbe. Okay, let me try that again.